Welcome to The Dark Side, where we journey through the most enigmatic and captivating moments in human history. Today, we embark on a voyage to the very edge of our knowledge, where three brave astronauts found themselves lost in the unforgiving vastness of space. This is the story of Apollo 13, a mission that pushed the limits of human endurance and ingenuity. On April 11, 1970, the Apollo 13 mission launched from the Kennedy Space Center in America, aiming to reach the moon. This was NASA's third lunar mission, following the successful moon landing by Neil Armstrong less than a year earlier. The astronauts aboard were confident about their mission and dreamt of walking on the lunar surface. However, their dreams were shattered when, at a distance of around 330,000 kilometers from Earth, a sudden explosion rocked their spacecraft. An oxygen tank had burst, and another was leaking rapidly. The situation was dire, with alarms blaring and warning lights flashing. Mission Control initially thought it might be a malfunction, but the astronauts could see the air escaping through the window. To make matters worse, the explosion had sent their spacecraft off course, hurtling away from Earth at an unprecedented speed. Within hours, Apollo 13 set a new record for the farthest humans had ever been from Earth. The question was no longer about landing on the moon, it was whether they could return safely to Earth. 3 days were allotted for the journey to the Morrow crater on the moon, a significant lunar feature holding valuable information about both the moon and Earth. The mission proceeded smoothly for the first 2 days, with an amusing incident where astronaut Jack Swigert forgot to file his income tax return but received a 60-day extension from Mission Control. This light-hearted exchange highlighted the trouble-free nature of the mission. Around 46 hours and 43 minutes into the mission, the spacecraft was reported to be in excellent condition, with the crew expressing their boredom. On the third day, April 13th, the crew had tasks involving testing the lunar module and conducting a televised broadcast showcasing the spacecraft's interiors. Unfortunately, the broadcast garnered little interest from television networks. Commander Lovell's wife watched the broadcast from the VIP section of Mission Control. Shortly after its conclusion, flight controllers on the ground asked Swigert to check the oxygen levels in the service module. During this routine check, a sudden and catastrophic explosion occurred. Warning lights and alarms blared as shock gripped the astronauts in their spacecraft. Commander Lovell urgently contacted Mission Control, uttering, "Houston, we've got a problem." The crisis emerged as one oxygen tank had run dry, while the other was depleting rapidly. Initially, Mission Control doubted the instrument's accuracy, but the grim reality was undeniable. The race to save the astronauts' lives was on, and suddenly, the mission that news channels had labeled boring took center stage. In the spacecraft's service module, 2 sphere-shaped oxygen tanks stored liquid oxygen, converted to gas by a central heater. Tank number 2, originally from Apollo 10, had been modified after a minor accident. Damaged during repairs, an unnoticed tube issue lingered. Attempts to empty the tank revealed a flawed thermometer with a max reading of 30 degrees Celsius. Even though the heater's heat skyrocketed to 538 degrees Celsius, the extreme heating that damaged the electrical wire insulation in the tank went unnoticed due to it not registering on the thermometer. NASA had approved the tank for the Apollo 13 mission after a thorough investigation, but the internal damage remained hidden. On the third day of the mission, during a routine check of the tank, a spark caused an explosion. Fortunately, the tank was attached to the exterior of the spacecraft, preventing a catastrophic interior explosion that could have killed the astronauts instantly. Instead, only a 13-foot panel in the service module was damaged. Now facing a critical decision, the astronauts needed to find the fastest way to return to Earth. One option was to rotate the spacecraft, but this required starting the main engine located near the blast in the CSM module. The status of the engine's condition remained uncertain. NASA's flight director opted for the second return option, circling around the moon to get back to Earth without using the service module's engine, despite the extended 4 to 5 day journey. The astronauts were instructed to shut down the CSM module and rely on the lunar module as a lifeboat. However, this choice came with challenges. The lunar module was designed for 2 astronauts and a 20-hour stay on the moon, not a 4 to 5 day journey. Its engines weren't designed for repeated use, adding risk. To conserve supplies and energy, they had to power down non-essential systems, including heaters. The astronauts embarked on this journey, firing the lunar module's engines for the first time, known as a burn, to change their course, bringing them to the far side of the moon. At their furthest point, 400,000 kilometers from Earth, the astronauts faced a tight deadline. Their return path would only leave them with 1 hour of surplus food, water, and oxygen upon reaching Earth after a risky 153-hour journey. NASA, concerned about this slim margin, instructed the astronauts to initiate a second lunar module engine burn. Calculations proved this maneuver successful, reducing the flight time to 143 hours, providing an 11-hour safety cushion. However, another problem emerged: high carbon dioxide levels. Spaceships used lithium hydroxide canisters to remove carbon dioxide, preventing dangerous buildup. The lunar module's canisters were designed for 2 people surviving 2 days, while there were 3 astronauts needing 4 days. Fortunately, the command module held additional canisters, but they had square filters, unlike the lunar module's circular ones. The experts on the ground had 24 hours to solve this problem. Astronauts from the spacecraft communicated to tell them about all things present around them. Plastic bags, cardboard, some suit hoses, some duct tape. They wanted to create something that could be the solution to this problem. After a few hours of experimenting, they make a contraption to make this work. After giving step-by-step instructions, a new device was created with the things present there, with which the level of carbon dioxide decreases again. Commander Lovell in his book Lost Moon states that the contraption wasn't very handsome, but it worked. In this entire rescue mission, even the smallest details were taken care of. Astronauts were instructed not to drink more than 200 milliliters of water in a day, because if they drink more water, they will need to urinate. And in this way, the quantity of their urine could change the direction of the spaceship. That's why they needed to survive by drinking so little water. These 3 astronauts lost 14 kilograms of weight in total. Astronaut Hayes gets a urinary tract infection. After 4 days, when Apollo 13 spacecraft reaches Earth, astronauts realize that they need to burn once more. In their calculations, they hadn't taken into account the cooling vapor present in the spacecraft. This caused the spacecraft to wander off the track. Commander Lovell carried out another burn of the lunar module, which brought the spacecraft back on track. Thankfully, the spacecraft could withstand the third burn too. Even though this lunar module was designed to withstand only one burn, the whole world was holding their breaths and watching the news channels, and were waiting for the astronauts to return to Earth. The family members and friends of the astronauts were watching this play out on TV together. For this part, the astronauts had to return to the command module because only the command module was made for re-entry on the Earth. As soon as the command module entered the Earth's atmosphere, there was a communication blackout. This was normal because due to ionization of the air, the radio waves get blocked and communication cannot be done between the NASA employees present on the ground and the astronauts in the spacecraft. Usually, this communication blackout is for 2 to 3 minutes. It was expected that the communication blackout here would be for a maximum of 3 minutes. 3 minutes were over, but there was no answer from the other side. 10 seconds pass. 30 seconds. 60 seconds. Even after 4 minutes, there was no communication from the spacecraft. 4 minutes and 27 seconds later, finally, communication was received from the other side. The people watching it on television could finally breathe again. All 3 astronauts survived. The parachute was deployed in the command module and it slowly fell into the Pacific Ocean. The 3 astronauts returned home safe and sound. Apollo 13, a challenging 1970 space mission where 3 astronauts were lost in space, but through teamwork and smart thinking, they made it home safely. Their story teaches us that even in tough times, people can succeed. Let Apollo 13 inspire us to keep exploring and reaching for the stars as we learn new things in the future. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content like this.